Hey guys, Sagittal Recovery back for another stream. I know I just ended one, but I wanted to do a stream that was separate from that had a conversation and us have a discussion. I don't want that stream that has to do with Darnisha to have other people come in and talk about other stuff or other subjects that are on that. I want to show respect and make that stream itself private to her. I want that to be specific to her. I don't want it to be a bunch of stuff put together. So how is everyone doing today on this fine Saturday day? We do have some really nice weather here going on in Ohio. Today is going to be a good day. My family is throwing a birthday party for me on today. I have to wash some clothes and clean my apartment a little bit before I go and grab my kids and go down to my sister's and enjoy the holiday, aka my birthday. But how is everyone's weekend going? How's the first day of the weekend starting? How was your guys' work week? How did it end up? I cannot complain. My life is pretty good. My life is pretty good. I cannot complain. Now, there are some articles of good stuff that's going on. There is an article for curfews on men. So let's get into this article because this article right here is going to be important. I'm trying to tell people in my personal life that if this happens in a Western country besides America, that in a few years this could easily come to America, because the countries in Europe and the countries that are Western countries that are across the pond, they are the wave. They set the trend for what happens here in America. We just happen to be 10 to 15 to 20 years behind the things that they end up doing. So let's get into this article. The Irish Post says Green Party peer calls for 6 p.m. curfew for all men in wake of Sarah Everard murder. The British Green Party peer has called for a ban for all men being outside after 6 p.m. in order to make women a lot safer. Now, I just did a story of a friend of mine that was murdered. Probably 3 or 4 exits from my house. She's not very far from me. It's not that far of a drive up the highway to where they found her. And the reason that I bring this up is because during debate in the House of Lords on Thursday, Jenny Jones demanded a blanket curfew for all men across the UK, saying that not only would women be a lot safer as a result, but that discrimination of all kinds would be lessened. In the week that Sarah was abducted and we suppose killed because remains have been found in a woodland in Kent, I agree that at the next opportunity for any bill that is appropriated, I might put on an amendment to create a curfew for men on the streets after 6 p.m., says Jones. I feel this would make women a lot safer, and discrimination of all kinds would be lessened. Taking to Twitter following her speech, Jones added that her solution was better than the Met telling women to stay indoors. Following reports of officers in London cautioning women to be careful, her calls for curfews echoed those made during the Reclaim the Night rallies during the 70s in the UK, when members of the women's liberation movement took to the streets in the wake of the Yorkshire Ripper murders. Women across the country took to social media in thousands, telling stories of how vulnerable they feel when they're walking alone in the dark. Scottish First Minister said that there will be a few, if any, women who don't completely understand and identify with this. But while almost everyone was in agreement that something had to be done, Jones suggested was widely slammed for being sexist and completely misdiagnosis of the problem. That many insisting that it is simply about men versus women, but about right versus wrong, and that it will take the effort of both genders working in tandem to find the best solution. So, what is yes, this is also why I am not a fan of this. So in the UK, you have a woman that wants to give curfews to all men because a woman was abducted and killed. In Europe 4 years ago, a woman was able to divorce her husband in the 80s, years after he started a business, and as of 27 years after their divorce, his business was worth 57 million pounds. She sued him for 2 million pounds because he had wealth now and she was broke. The judge awarded her 300,000 pounds. So in London, you have the ability to sue somebody after you've already divorced and after they've made a business that you were never part of, you were never tied to in marriage. If a man becomes successful after you've divorced him, you are now entitled to get money from him for a second time after a divorce. In Canada, you had a woman that never lived with a man, was never married to a man, never had bank accounts together, never shared resources, none of these things. He asked her to marry her. She said yes. They were engaged. He wanted her to sign a prenup. She said no. She declined the marriage. After he broke up with her, she was able to take him to court for alimony, and he had to pay her $50,000 a month for 10 years. So Canada and London have set precedent when it comes to pushing the laws against men in marriage and not marriage farther. Now, if this curfew gets passed, it is only a matter of time before we are going to see those laws here in America. And the issue with society that we have, I agree. Western women in Western women they're not, it's not worth the marriage. At the end of the day, like the leftist, feminist, womanist ideology and the way that they've gone about empowering women has weakened the men in society. We now have soft, weak men. And the more and more men become weaker, the more and more our rights are going to be taken from us, and the more as a second-class citizen we are going to become. Just imagine in a few years if they're talking about here in America a bachelor's tax. If you're not married and you're a single man, that they can tax you more money because you have no woman. So if you're going to get taxed more for being single, women that you date can get alimony from you. And we have a 6 o'clock curfew. Think how devastating that's going to be to society. It's going to be devastating. The fact of the matter, all these ideas seem crazy, are being done by separate people. Eventually, these are going to come together and be under the same umbrella. And I'm going to give you an example. Back in the day, the civil rights, when it came to gay marriage or when it came to same-sex marriage, was for gays. But as time goes on, you now have the alphabet community, which is like 16 different letters all under the same umbrella. So as time goes on, even though bisexual people and gay people and lesbian people and transgender people, they all have their own different problems and plights. They've joined up underneath the same umbrella, and they're all together pushing for the same things under the gay agenda. This is the same thing that's going to end up happening when it comes to the womanism. You're going to have one woman pushing to be able to come after her husband after he's been successful from their divorce. Again, you have another woman that feels that she's entitled to money because she didn't get the outcome that she wanted. And then you're going to have another woman pushing for the safety of women at the cost of men's rights. And all those women together have the exact same gender, and they have the exact same idea that women need more. And they're going to link up together as women do, and they are going to push all these narratives at once. And over time, they are all going to come under the same umbrella. And if us men, black, white, purple, green, do not recognize what is going on and start changing the things that we do and working together to stop these laws from happening, we could see ourselves in our kids' lifetime or in our lifetime becoming slaves even more than we are to the system. We are already paying the majority of the taxes that pay for these entitlement programs. When it comes down to the government giving us money, we don't receive funds and money and aid from the government like the women do. When it comes to insurance, health insurance, majority of the money is going to women. When it goes to the government and scholarships and grants for school, majority of that money is going to women to go to college. We are disproportionately not receiving the same amount of money that the females are receiving from the government, but we pay the bulk of the taxes. We pay the bulk of the entitlements and receive the least amount of these things. So with us being the bread and butter of this country, when it comes down to the infrastructure, to the tax base, we are the majority of what makes this country run. And they are totally, the politicians and the womanists are completely okay with us having our role in society as being slaves and backing and paying for all the unnecessary crap that they want to keep giving handouts for. So another thing. So we're hearing cities are giving out reparations. We have cities that are giving out reparations. So here's an article about reparations. Okay. So in Evanston, Illinois, using tax money from the sale of recreational marijuana, the Chicago suburbs of Evanston has become the first U.S. city to make reparations available to its black residents for past discrimination and the lingering effect of slavery. The city council on Monday voted 8-1 to begin making good on its pledge to distribute $10 million over the next 10 years, with the distribution of $400,000 to eligible black households. Each equaling household would receive $25,000 for home repairs, down payments on property, and interest or late penalties on property in the city. The move by the Illinois community continues as hundreds of communities and organizations across the country have considered providing reparations. In Evanston, besides revenue from a 3% tax on the sales of recreational marijuana, a small portion of money, $21,340, is coming to the city in private donations. Qualifying residents must either have lived in or been a direct descendant of a black person who lived in Evanston between 1919 and 1969, or that person direct descendant who suffered discrimination in housing because of the city ordinances, policing, or practices. Also, residents who are experienced discrimination due to the city's policies or practices from 1969 can qualify. Robin Rue Simons, who proposed the program that was adopted in 2019, said groups in support of reparations have offered pro bono legal assistance if the program is challenged in court. This is set aside for the injured community that happens to be black that was injured by the city. At the same time, Simon suggests that the money is just a start to right the wrongs of the past. We all know that the road to repair justice in the black community is going to be a generation of work. Simon said it's going to be many programs and initiatives and more funding. The city council acted after dozens of citizens addressed the body and plan received some pushback from several. Fleming, the lone vote against the plan, said she supports reparations, but what the city council was debating is a House plan that is being called reparations. She said the people should dictate the terms of how the grievances are repaired. Fleming described the program as, I have no idea, and assumed black people can't manage their own money. Other communities and organizations consider providing reparations range from the state of California to the city to cities like Amherst, Massachusetts, Providence, Rhode Island, Nashville, North Carolina, and Iowa City, Iowa. So the reason that I bring this up is because regardless of what people say, the tax base that's going to be end up paying that is going to be men. Regardless if they're going to say that it's a 3% tax from the sale of marijuana in Illinois. Illinois is not going to sell enough weed in that small city to be able to pay the reparations of that. It's not. And we all know that the government, when they take taxes and they say it's for schools and roads and sick children, those people that get that money don't allocate that money to those things. Anyone that knows anything about the lottery would know that the lottery was supposed to go to schools and roads and all that good stuff. And the roads suck and the schools suck. What's going to end up having to happen is they're going to end up using money to pay reparations. And reparations, it says that the reparations are a start to justifying the wrongs. What that means is they're going to give money, and the money is not going to be enough. They're going to keep giving money. And when these cities are going to be spending this money, they're going to need to get more money from the federal government, because the federal government gives cities and states money. Part of taxes that you pay to the feds and part of sales tax in states go to the federal government, and a portion of that is given to the state. What's going to end up happening is these places are going to be spending this money, and people that are black that pay taxes in other states or other cities that aren't getting reparations are going to be giving money to the federal government, and the federal government is then going to give their money to other people. So what's going to end up happening is black men and white men in other places are going to be floating the bill. So even if you're black and you feel that reparations is warranted, you're going to end up paying reparations from you to other people. And the majority of the people that are going to be receiving money and not paying taxes is women. So even if as a man you agree that reparations is deserving of the black community, the way that it's going to work out is it's going to mostly impact women. Women are going to be the most that are going to be getting this money, and the people that are going to have to pay for it are going to be black men. So even though this seems like it's a good idea, it's again going to be disingenuous, and it's not going to benefit black men. The majority of black men are going to be paying the taxes of this because 64% of black men are in the middle class. That's the middle class is the tax base of this country. Another thing, on top of reparations that are being paid, you have Goldman Sachs. So here's another program of money that's getting doled out. Goldman Sachs, 1 million black women. In partnership with Black women-led organization and other partners, our new investment initiative, 1 million black women will commit 10 billion in direct investment capital and 100 million in support to address dual gender and racial biases that black women have faced for generations, which have only been exacerbated by the pandemic. 1 million black women will comprise investment focused on key moments in black women's lives from early childhood through retirement. These investment areas include healthcare, education, housing, and small businesses, all aimed at narrowing opportunity gaps and positively impacting the lives of at least 1 million black women. Most importantly, the investment will be grounded in the story and voices and experiences of black women together with leading organizations representing black women. Goldman Sachs is launching with a series of listening sessions. So, as we can see in this, so Goldman Sachs, a bank, is going to be giving $10 billion that's going to be invested and be able to be given to black women. So, now necessarily this is not going to be all women in general, but when you have Goldman Sachs that's giving money to black women, you have these cities giving reparations, it's going to be mostly black women. You're going to see that the problems that we have in the black community and in general are it's all being pushed against men. It's all against men. You have black men that are going to end up paying taxes for this reparations. You're going to end up having the bank give black women money to invest and get retirement, education, all these things. So as you can see, the things I'm talking about across the pond, those things are going to come here and they're going to make the relationships between men and women and the way men are treated worse. It's going to be worse. I'm telling you guys, in the next 10 or 20 years, men are going to definitely be second-class citizens. And unfortunately, we have to do something and stand up. If no one's going to do anything, I don't know what 20 years is going to look like. I turned 32 on Tuesday. In 20 years, I'll be in my 50s. I won't even be retired yet. So the average lifespan of a man is like 70 some years, the average lifespan. So I more than likely won't die. Most men more than likely won't die for another 30, 40 years. So in 20 years, we're going to have 10 to 15, 20 years of dealing with possibly curfews, women that listen, if you got married today and your wife divorced you next year, in 20, 30 years, she might be able to come back again in your 50s or 60s and hit you with money from the divorce from 20 or 30 years ago. On top of them, now that you're single, they want you to pay more taxes. As you can see, all of this is to keep this. All this is, if this all gets implemented, this is going to make the financial strain for men to be able to take care and feed themselves. It's going to make it much harder. Much harder. Here, I'm going to post it. the StreamYard. Anyone that wants to come up here and discuss any of these topics, because this is absolute, like, all this stuff is insane. We can't even have a boys and girls. We can't even have a Boy Scouts without girls being involved in it. Men are literally not allowed to have any sort of thing to themselves. Anything. But you can have banks that are distinctly giving women money. You can have the government forcing men, not giving men any sort of money from taxes that we pay for. As you can see from banks, the government, the mainstream, everything is isolating men. I would not be surprised in the next 80 to 100 years if it is allowed for women to tell a man that we have to get her pregnant and the government sanctions it. Oh yeah, she wants you to give her a baby, you have to. The more and more time goes on, this stuff is just becoming more and more aggressive. In the 50s, it was they want to work too. Okay, that's cool. They can work. Now it's they want to work. They want the government to give them money. They want us to give them money. They want us to pay for their stuff. They want us to pay more taxes. They want us to have curfews. They want us to get to the point where if they said we did something that we get charged and arrested for it. If you look from the 50s till now, our rights as men have been being eroded more and more and more and more and more. The more and more time goes on, the more and more rights men are. The more and more. Ash, go, dude. I understand. No, I know. I totally agree. I totally agree that this is all orchestrated and this is all planned. Like, let's just be honest. If we were to go into lockdown, we were to lock down women every time a man was killed, women would never be able to leave their house. More men are killed than women are killed. If every job in the country was shut down because a man died at work, women wouldn't be able to work. Unfortunately, the disparities between men and women are vast, but yet in society they believe that women themselves are the victims. I don't really know what this world is going to be in the next few years. Part of the reason that I have this channel is because I do have a son. I have a son that is 4, and he's going to be growing up and have to go into this world. Most of us that were born in the 80s and early 90s remember a time in which there wasn't the internet was dial-up. There wasn't dating apps. There wasn't online dating. Like, there was a time when you actually had to meet women in public and talk to them to get their number to go on a date. Just in the time alone, with any of us that have sons and kids, they're never going to know about the time before that. Like, if you're a millennial, correct. I definitely do think that black men and white men need to work together to stop this, because if we don't, we're doomed. We're doomed. As it is right now, we're slaves. We're all slaves to women. Like, that's what it comes down to. Even if you don't have a woman in your life and you're not married and you have no kids, just the amount of money that you pay in taxes that you don't receive any benefit for. Right now, you could be a man making $100K a year and paying a good percentage of your money to taxes, and you walk out of your house and a woman calls the cops and says that you assaulted her. The police don't show up to find out what happened. They show up to arrest you. Your taxes went to fund those police officers to violate your rights. The money that we spend in taxes is not in any way beneficial to us. There's no way that you can get around not paying for taxes at all. And that's why I mean that you're a slave. You're forced by gunpoint to pay taxes, and you're forced at gunpoint to have your rights violated. The fact that it's legal for women to commit paternity fraud and child support fraud on a man goes to show you that the taxes and system that you're involved in, that you don't have a choice in, is it's entrapping you. It's making you into a slave. Unfortunately, it's sad that more men are not woken up to this, and it's sad that a lot of the black manosphere and the white manosphere is not seeing the writing on the wall. The writing on the wall is the more and more that we have our own separate spaces, the deeper and deeper these policies and laws are going to get entrenched into society. And there's going to become a tipping point that even if at some point the laws are going to get so pervasive that even if we started to work together at some point, the laws were going to be so far gone that you're never going to be able to get up and out from underneath these laws and get these laws undone. You can see this when it comes into colleges. Already, if a woman accuses a guy of harassment or a sex crime or any sort of sexual assault, any of these things, if she says he did it, they immediately expel him and they blackball him from college. And then his college career is screwed just off her word. And they don't bring the police in to investigate. The college itself is the judge, the jury, and the executioner. And most of these colleges are funded by our taxes. We're funding the government that pays these colleges a lot of money. And if we end up wanting to send our sons to these colleges, we're funding the destruction of our own children. It's very unfortunate the life that any guy that has kids or wants kids in the future, we're funding the destruction of our own offspring. And it's sad. Like, there is an article of a woman that started an all-woman business where they didn't hire men. Can any of you guys imagine if men had a business where we didn't hire women? Do you think that would be allowed to happen? Or do you think that women would sue and make complaints with the government to get us for discrimination to allow women into the workplace? But no men sued to be able to work at that woman's company. Now, fortunately, all the women working there, and it being all women, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And a lot of the issue here, when it says, because you're saying that black men are behind, they believe it's a race war that's going on, when in reality it's a gender war. I totally agree with you. And to top it off, a lot of the people that you hear pushing the racism or the colorism, all of these isms that you're hearing pushed, majority come from the women, and a lot of the women are teaching this to their boys. The other night, I had a guy on here named Black Pill who was telling us that white people are racist and all this stuff, and that he was saying all this stuff in my comment section. And when he came up here and we started to discuss it, his view started to change. But he said, plain as day, his mother hates white people, and that's where he was getting his views from. So it's the women mostly that are pushing this idea. And that plays into their benefit, because by them pushing all this racist stuff to believe onto their children are not going to be able to come together. They're not going to be able to come together and stop these laws, because the division between black men and white men on these laws are going to help these women that are pushing these ideas of getting more free stuff. Women of today are literally selling their children into money and trinkets and shiny pants for themselves today, and passing that debt and that burden on to their next generations. And it isn't until men start to wake up and realize that this is not good for anyone. Like, it's just not beneficial for anyone. So what you have to understand, Chris, about the men making the laws, you have women that are in the Senate and the House. You have men and women that are in Congress and in the Senate. And you also have to realize that women are a majority of the voter base here in the United States. So as a politician, you have to placate to women, because if women do not vote for you, there is no possible way for you to become elected. And obviously, like when Congress end up passing laws, or Congress or senators end up passing laws, they always cut themselves out of these laws. So when Obamacare was passed, none of the congressmen or senators had to get Obamacare. They did not. They were exempt from the penalty. Also, once a senator or a congressman is in office, they get a pension for the rest of their lives. They can get Secret Service for the rest of their lives. When they pass laws about insider trading, they exempt themselves from insider trading. So even though men and women in Congress are passing laws that are a war on men, they have to placate to women to get into office. And the laws they pass exempt them from the laws that are being passed on us. So it's not just a war on men, it's still a war on men from women, because women are the most likely to complain and cry. They're the most likely to beg for more stuff. The reason that they're attacking men is because the weaker men are, the weaker that men are, the easier it is to take over a country. What it comes down to is the agenda is to push this country into socialism or communism. And if you have strong men that are able to take control of society, then you're not going to be able to push that. But the weaker and weaker you make the men, because you have to also understand that when women vote, women usually vote for bigger government, and they vote for communism. Women are more prone to want communism or want socialism. Yeah, you can't control an independent thinking man. So at the end of the day, women are always going to vote for security. So if you make it and elevate women to their above men, women are more likely going to vote for bigger government. Free thinking men are going to, for example, if you look at the Revolutionary War, it was free thinking men that went against the world's largest empire for their freedom, and they were willing to die to not be ruled by other men. It's a fact. Men, if they're strong thinking, free thinking men, they are willing to sacrifice their lives for that cause. Women are not. Women follow the herd. So if it becomes in the mainstream media that we should be dependent on something, women are going to go along to get along. Women are the easiest thing to control when it comes to social pressure. Why do you think slut shaming is bad? Because back in the day, other women shunned women that were sluts. So slutty women were looked down on, so there were not that many slutty women. But the more and more society is allowing behaviors to become acceptable, the worse and worse things have become. Back when my mom was a kid, my mom graduated in 1984. If a woman got pregnant in high school, they sent that girl to another high school and you didn't see that woman again because they didn't want other girls to think that it was acceptable for with them to get pregnant in high school. So the thought was we will send these pregnant girls to other schools so that it doesn't spread to the other kids. Now you have 16, 15, and 14-year-olds on YouTube that are pregnant, that are making money and becoming famous for being teen moms. So the way that society works is women follow what is acceptable in society. If it was unacceptable to be a whore in society, you would not see Instagram models. You would not see a bunch of women openly selling their cat box. You would not see women openly talking about cheating and robbing and stealing from men. But because it's become normalized, you have more and more women that are openly admitting to these things. So when you have a bunch of beta scent males out here that agree with whatever women say, and you have women over top of men, men are always going to be penalized because women don't take accountability and women want bigger government and less responsibility. Men are willing to step up and take responsibility. So men are more likely to say, I would rather have freedom. I don't want cameras in my neighborhood. I don't want cameras on the highway. I would rather have the risk of something happening to me and there not being a camera and have to deal with that than being watched and having less freedom. Women are more likely to give up freedom to feel safe. So all of this stuff is going in to make men weaker and to bring in communism because it is women who are strong for socialism. Most of the feminism that you see in this country talk about more money from the government, more health care for women, more paid vacations when they have kids. All the things that you see being pushed for in society are free stuff from the government. And the more and more that you allow the government to be able to dictate the things that they provide to people, the bigger the government gets. The more free stuff that they give. Yes, I agree. The more and more the government gets its hands in, the more and more power the government has. And the more and more free stuff the government gives, the more and more taxes are going to get. Of course, it's going down this road. The more and more money the government needs to take in, the higher the taxes are going to be. The majority tax base in America is men. As a whole, men pay taxes. As a whole, women do not. They take and receive more money than they pay out in taxes. So, with that being said, bigger government is the restriction of men's freedoms. That's simple. If you want to get bigger government, you have to have weak men. If you want to have more control with government, you have to have weak men. The more you want the government to be able to expand, the weaker the family you have to make it, and the weaker the men you have to make it. It's that simple. Men build countries, men build empires. Women do not. They just don't. They don't do that. So, for anyone that is just joining us, the reparations that are going on in certain places in the country is going to come down to men having to pay, black or white. And the main recipients of these things are going to be women, mark my words. And on top of that, the alimony, child support, and divorce laws in other countries that are becoming more and more restrictive to men are going to be coming to America. And this curfew that was proposed by the Green Party in Europe, in London, eventually it's going to come here. So wake up, guys. Wake up. If you want to be able to go outside and do whatever it is that you want to do and live free, you have to wake up, because it's going to come a time where you're not going to be able to do those things. Yes, America is the new Rome, and there was a guy in Rome that talked about they're going to elevate women, and within 150 years of them elevating women, 150 years of him saying that women were elevated, Rome fell. It's that simple. We're not breeding strong men and warriors anymore. We're breeding soy boys and masculine women. And regardless of a woman's masculine or feminine, she is not able to build anything. They're not able to engineer roads and cities, and like that's not what women's good at. They're just not. If every man in the United States were to stop working for 2 weeks, the country would fall into disaster. It is us men that our labor is what fuels all of the utilities and essential things in the country. If all men stopped working at power plants, there would be no power. If we were all to stop working at water treatment centers, there'd be no water. If men stopped picking up garbage on garbage trucks, there would be trash everywhere. If men were to stop being plumbers and electricians, society would collapse. If you give it 2 weeks to 4 weeks of men going on strike and not working at all to show the country exactly what it is. When it comes to International Women's Day, they talk about all women taking 1 day and showing their vast impact on the economy. I'm telling you right now, if men were to do this, if men were to take a month off, society would start to crumble. It would start to crumble. Majority of the people in the military are men. Majority of the people in the police force are men. Majority of the things that keep this country safe and running are all for men. If we were to take time off of a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month off of work, women would see the devastating power men have in society in making this work. Women have been living in la la land and think that they can just keep talking trash about us and using us as being bad to get free stuff, and keep pushing and pushing, and life is going to be good. Once us men fall in the Western world, women are going to fall as well, and they just do not realize how important we are to society. Well, that is enough for this TED Talk, guys. I very much appreciate you guys coming and joining me on my TED Talk on this fine Saturday morning. As always, guys, you guys can find me on Instagram at Savage Red Recovery. I also have a Patreon if you guys would like to join the Patreon. I also have what is it called? What is that fucking? I can't remember the website. It's all good. But if you guys want to support the channel, please like, share, subscribe, share these videos with people. You guys can always email me at savageredrecovery@gmail.com and send me any sort of topics. If you guys join my Patreon, you're able to get my phone number and directly contact me directly. And if you guys like the work that I do and want to help support the channel, my Cash App is #Savage Red Recovery. You can help support there. You can help support at the Patreon. As always, guys, stay savage.